So, how has COVID affected the operations of the Otter Swim Club?
Well, quite frankly, we shut down. Um, we were lucky in Ontario, I think, in that our provincial championships were March 5th to March 8th. So we got our spring provincial championships in. Yep, we had some great success stories that were covered in the paper. So if you're out there and you work for the papers, thank you very much, obviously, for the coverage our swimmers got. It was great. They were very excited to see the pictures and the results and things like that. But on March the 12th, I think they canceled school for 3 weeks. Right, they were shutting down until April 5th, I believe, and then we still had our practices on March the 13th in the morning and night, and then even on the 14th on the Saturday morning. I canceled our weights session because I was concerned about whether equipment would be sterilized properly, and there were a lot of unknowns. I think back, in mid-March. We were told on March the 15th that we were going to be closed until April 5th with schools, which I supported. That was a tough decision, but they also had canceled Olympic trials, which were going to be running at the first week of April. So at that point, it wasn't the end of the world for us. We thought we were in for a shutdown for a while. We weren't sure for how long, and then the longer it lasted, we realized that Swim Canada was canceling all their national programming. Swim Ontario followed suit and canceled all their provincial level programming, and then just as we learned what we needed to do with social distancing and good hygiene and hand washing, all those other things, wearing masks, we've been shut down. Our contract was canceled till July the 6th. So when we were told our first restart date would be July the 6th, that made sense, and we were excited about it. Certainly don't fault the town for shutting the facilities. I think we have to put our health first, certainly. So we've been operating through Zoom calls like we're doing now. I've been coaching my swimmers. They did a very, very intensive dryland program that included running, cycling, weights, plyometric dryland, core work, stretching, some band work, so stretch cords that mimic what you can do in the water with strokes. Some of them have backyard pools that they opened early, and they used a tether, a tether that would anchor them on a wall, and they could swim in the middle of the pool. So our swimmers have been very dedicated, very, very dedicated, and I fully reward them with praise for what they've done over 5 months. It's been incredible. I swam on my own for 5 months when I had a falling out with a university coach, and it's difficult to maintain your motivation for that length of time when you're swimming on your own. Our swimmers have been incredible, just incredible. It's hard to believe how dedicated they are. It's fantastic to see. It's humbling. I'm really eager to get back to work with them. We're not swimming at the pool today, but I'm going to head over to the Caledon Quarry where my assistant coach, Richard Patey, who runs Healthy Results, fantastic coach, fantastic person. He's running this return to swimming camp with me, and in order to get everything approved by Swim Ontario, we're doing the open water through Triathlon Ontario. Ontario was very nervous about having kids in the open water environment requiring special insurance and approvals, and this was just the easiest way. So I'm going to head over to the quarry later to see my swimmers, because I've seen them a few times when they collected their gear, when we had a celebration for our graduating swimmers, going on to university, but that's it. I haven't seen them swimming, so I'm really keen to get back in on a pool deck or somewhere to see them in the water. So even though that's not my area of expertise, that's Rich is leading the open water as a former national and international level triathlete and Canadian, top two to Simon Whitfield. That's where he's certainly his skill and knowledge exceeds mine. So I'm going to head over there to the quarry and get in a kayak today and have some fun, see the swimmers in the water. But yeah, so we've been out for a long time. It's basically like having 2.5 summers off for some of our younger kids. And for older kids who finish at the end of July at the Canadian Junior Championships, who have 6 weeks off, right? We're still talking like they've had 3 summer breaks. So yeah, it's been a long time off. But like I said, they've been doing everything out of the water that we would normally do plus more. So I think that we're going to see some swimmers who really look good in the water and who are strong, who are fit. They may lack a little bit of the aerobic fitness and the muscular endurance for doing the strokes in the water, but that won't take too long. Unfortunately, for some of our younger kids who ended earlier and just didn't train as much, or were not even doing any dryland training, we were not allowed to instruct them if they hadn't been taught how to do certain things properly. So we had a whole group of our club who's not actually done anything that we've led since March. So luckily for them, most of them are young and they hopefully have very, very long swimming careers ahead of them. So they can catch up and they'll be okay. Just it'll take a lot longer to build them back up to potentially where they were with their strokes. And we'll just have to take it slow. And that's the nice thing about being young. You have time, right? You're not going to make the Olympic team at 10 years old next season. You're going to qualify for Olympic trials. You're looking at 2028 maybe as sort of, where you could be on the national level. So there's certainly a ton of time. But I know those kids are also eager, and I can understand the frustration of some of the youngest swimmers. Swim Ontario wants us to reopen with a select group of our older, more mature athletes to maintain social distancing, to test our protocols. So again, very excited to get back in the water and on a pool deck or at a quarry with the kids, because it's been a long time. Feels like forever now.
That seems like the smart way to go about it, like as far as bringing in the older kids. But have you had to introduce any new safety precautions as far as like?
Yep, absolutely. So Swim Ontario required for us to submit a plan for approval. And so for us specifically, when we were using Alder, we were going to, even though they would let us use the change rooms, we were not allowed to use the change rooms. So from arrival at, let's use the Alder plan because that was what was approved. I now have to redo it for Tony Rose, which actually probably be a little bit easier because we can access the pool from the parking lot. But from entry to Alder, they have to wear a mask, right? So they have to have at least a non-medical mask, a cloth mask on their face in all common areas as they enter the facility to the point at which they're on the pool deck. When they're on the pool deck, I have to give them a COVID screening to ask them about any possible symptoms, and they have to do that test at home as well. And if they answer yes to any of those questions, they're expected to stay home. We have infrared thermometers that we're going to use at both locations to do a temperature check. And we will send kids home if they answer yes to a screening question, or if their temperature, I think, is 38.5 degrees or above, just as a precautionary measure. And if they answer yes, we're asking that they see a medical doctor to be assessed to see if that is a potential COVID case. And if that is the case, then they're asked to self-isolate for 14 days. We're in training bubbles now. So once the kids are on the pool deck, we normally would have, maybe 4 to 8 kids per lane, depending on the speed and the age and the size of the swimmer. Now we're limited to having, we're doing 4 per double lane, so 2 in a lane, but 4 in total if we add lane 1 and 2 together. So normally there's a lane rope between lane 1 and 2. In order to remain socially distanced when they're passing each other, they have to swim one direction in lane 1 and then the other direction in lane 2. So they're not passing each other side by side within a single lane. So normally you would do a circle in lane 1 and say you go up on the right and you come back on the left. And when you're swimming side by side, that lane is only 2 meters wide. So, there's 1 meter of width for you to swim on one side and 1 meter of width for the other. Now we're taking that lane rope out and we're using lane 1 and 2. So they're going to swim up in lane 1 and then move over and swim back in lane 2, right? So it's an awkward way to do it, but that's the Swim Ontario protocol for our return to sport plan. And we're going to assess to see how our protocols work. I'm sending the workouts to kids ahead of time. So I can't use the whiteboards to write down the sets. They're given the workouts, they bring them with them. I can remind them, but I can't use the whiteboard. There's no congregation, there's social distancing. We can't use any of the facilities equipment. They have to bring their own equipment. We can't leave it in our deck boxes. We can't use the change rooms. We can't use the lockers. I don't know how I would make use of the underwater camera system easily. That's something I'm trying to figure out as we return to the pool, because we have an underwater camera system we usually use once or twice a week. to assess what kids are doing technically under the water, where their biomechanics might be spot on or where they need a little bit of improvement. So lots of protocols for us. That training bubble, that group of 12 has to stay the same. They can't interact or intermix with other bubbles. So we have a 15-minute gap between training groups. Even within that training bubble, we have the same 4 people in those lanes together. So we have lane bubbles, as they call them. So it's really a group of 4 are together all the time within that group of 12. So there are lots of restrictions for now. Luckily, chlorine has been shown to inactivate the COVID-19 virus. So really the big question is with respiratory droplets and aerosols and how having kids close together when they're breathing heavily will affect the spread and the transmission. Because Rich is over at the quarry, if I were to get COVID-19, we'd have to shut down the pool swimming. I've been tested 3 times already, and we thought we had a couple of restarts, and once to visit my mom, who's in a high-risk category. I don't mind having a test done, but if we have someone test positive, we have to shut down that whole training bubble for 2 weeks. Everyone has to self-isolate. Everyone's going to need clearance from a doctor. And even then, if it's me and I'm having contact with the other swimmers, we might have to shut everything down at the pool, and which would mean everything gets shut down at the quarry as well. And we all have to be self-isolated and tested before we're allowed to resume our operation. So certainly we're taking this very, very seriously. Like I said earlier, the health of our membership is first and foremost in our mind. We don't want anyone getting sick. We have a couple of people who are in a high-risk population. We have a very high-achieving swimmer who is diabetic. I'm immunoglobulin A deficient, so I'm in a higher risk category as well. We don't want anyone sick. We certainly don't want anyone on a ventilator or anyone at risk of death. I think through COVID-19, we're realizing that there are some things that are really, really important in life. And although swimming is something I love and it's something that's very, very important, certainly our health and our safety supersedes our passion and desire to be in the pool. It's hard to say, it's hard to admit, because I love the sport so much, but that's just the reality of what we're dealing with right in the COVID-19 world. We're going to assess how our program runs, how we can maybe increase our numbers in the pool, but doing so in a safe way and one that's approved by our public health unit and approved by Swim Ontario, right? And we're just following the guidelines that are available to us, and making sure that we're doing things safely so that everyone can have the chance to get in the pool and resume swimming, and have a little bit of peace of mind knowing that we're doing it as safely as is possible. Because I think if you pay any attention to other sports, we're seeing it right now in Major League Baseball. They didn't want to have training bubbles. They wanted to go to different ballparks and travel back and forth. And you've seen COVID-19 just ravage a couple of those rosters. And, there's talk of teams, suspending. They've had to suspend the Phillies and the Marlins. Like they can't have their games properly, or people are getting sick all over the place. And in baseball, though, that's a sport where there's a good amount of social distancing there, right? When you consider the spread of the infielders and outfielders, pitcher, catcher. I mean, of course, when a batter's at the plate and you have the umpire, the catcher, the batter, they're all there together. And of course, there are umpires around the field. But that's a sport you thought they could have made that work probably far more easily than hockey, basketball, or football, that are contact sports really in your face, and other sports, of course, where you're not socially distanced the same way, like soccer and some other sports that I didn't name. But we don't want that to happen. We realize that if COVID-19 gets in the ranks of our clubs, there's a very good likelihood that it'll spread like wildfire, and we're doing our best to avoid that.
Yeah, so that's key.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.